Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So, I'm going to talk loud because I got the AC blasting. Today in history, today's the 30th of July. A lot of interesting stuff happened in history today. On this date in I'll tell you whose birthday it is today first. It's the governor's birthday. Arnold Schwarzenegger's birthday is today. Happy birthday, Arnold. The Austrian oak, the governor of California. On this day in 1975, Jimmy Hoffa disappeared from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. On this date in 1965, the President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed into law the amendments to the Social Security Act that created Medicare and Medicaid. So that was cool. Harry Truman, I saw a picture of it. Harry Truman was in the Oval Office when it was signed. Of course, he was the last living Democratic president because Roosevelt had, of course, passed on, and then Kennedy had been assassinated. So the only two living Democratic presidents at the time. What else happened? 1956. So not that long ago, the motto "In God We Trust" became the official motto of the United States. So just since 1956. On this day in 1936, Buddy Guy was born. And if you don't know who Buddy Guy is, I feel sorry for your non-blues listening ass. Buddy Guy, one of the greats, one of the great bluesmen ever. On this day in 1945, super tragic incident. The USS Indianapolis, which was a heavy cruiser, but it was an older class heavy cruiser, wasn't the most modern warship, so they had used Indianapolis to transport all of the basically the parts of Little Boy, and what was the other one? Wait, I can't remember the name of the atomic bombs, but both atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan. Anyway. One of them was fat and one of them was little, but I can't remember the other parts. Anyway, so Indianapolis transports those to Tinian, which is an island in the Pacific, and that's where the B-29 bombers flew from that dropped those bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, because it was kind of a secret mission, they were operating independently, right? Nobody kind of was paying attention to what they were doing. They weren't assigned to a task force, and then they were just basically transiting, I think, back to Hawaii and by themselves, so what is called independent steaming. And they were torpedoed by a Japanese submarine. They went down pretty quickly, and over 900 crewmen died, really for lack of rescue. Normally, if they'd have been signed to a battle group or they'd have been under some operational commander, there would have been a lot more cognizance over them. But most of the people that died in the water. They either died of dehydration, salt poisoning, drowning, and I guess salt poisoning and dehydration are the same thing. And shark attacks. It was a sad chapter. And by the way, the CO, and this has been a pattern in the Navy for decades, and it continues to this day, and that's a whole nother video, but you know, the CO of the Indianapolis was found, you know, his performance was found wanting because he wasn't using a zigzag pattern when they were transiting. But because they had no escorts, you know, there was no Japanese submarine activity reported in the area, His family, because he had been long since dead, his family fought to have his good name restored. Just like actually Admiral Husband Kimmel's family did. He was the scapegoat, along with Lieutenant General Walter Short for the Pearl Harbor attacks. And you know, it was just the whole thing was a sad chapter in U.S. naval history. It was just, you know, on a lot of levels, just not good. So anyway, I wanted to talk about, you know, and this is kind of under the heading of trucking. It's kind of under the heading of good luck, serendipity. It's also under the heading of, you know, weather-related equipment failure. So we got this load that's a -10 load that we're carrying, and this morning I got up and you know, because it's at such a low temperature, the reefer is going through fuel. So I was actually about, I was paying attention to it, and I you know, checked it at night. I got up and I was like, okay, I got about a little under a quarter of a tank. So I'm at a Love's, I fill it up. Everything's fine with the reefer, but it's set at miscellaneous frozen, I think, which is the -10 setting. And so it's in start-stop mode. So a couple of days ago, Beatrice it was at night, and we were over in Quartzsite, Arizona. And I stopped and got something to drink, and I took when she jumped out of the truck, I could tell she hurt her shoulder, her front left shoulder. So she limped around, but she was like, you know, she jumped back in the truck. But then this morning, you know, it seemed like it was really hurting her, and she didn't want to get out of the truck and go to the bathroom. So I drove for, I don't know, a while, and then I pulled over, and I was like, all right, I wanted her to try to go to the bathroom, right? Because I know she usually likes to go first thing in the morning. So I got her to come to the edge of the door, and I picked her up and I put her on the ground, but she was really limping and didn't want to put any weight on her left front leg. And so she just stood there. She wouldn't actually go to the bathroom. So I'm like, all right, well, you can lead a horse to water, right? So I pick her back up, I put her back in the truck, but then I gave her a Motrin, and because everybody knows vitamin M fixes almost any problem you got with your body. So I gave her the vitamin M, and then she seemed to be, you know, not feeling as much pain, hopping around a little bit. So then I was like, oh, well, I need to stop at this. I said, I'm going to stop at this rest area, and there'll be a grassy area. She can go to the bathroom. So that was cool. I stopped. I ran in, used the bathroom. I come out, get her leash, put her on it. She jumps out of the truck. She goes, does her business. Well, then I have a habit of checking the reefer every time I stop. And so while I'm walking her around, I walk by the side of the driver's side of the reefer, check my fuel level, and then I get up to the front. Now the reefer wasn't running, but that wasn't alarming to me. But then I also always flip that little thing up that you really can't see through. And I was like, oh crap, this thing has alarmed, and the temperature is higher than I wanted it to be. So I realized, so there was an alarm. Now the yellow light on the trailer had not come on, and what I later learned from RA is that the system is down, that sends these signals. Like, in fact, I called them earlier when I fueled this morning because I had all these alarms, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it, Qualcomm's messed up, or I'm not quoting the guy, I'm just saying that was the gist of it. So I'm like, oh crap. So I clear the alarm, and the thing goes through its startup, but I could just hear the solenoid clicking on the starter for the engine. So I'm like, I know exactly what the problem is. There's a bad cell in the battery. It's not generating enough cranking amps to turn the engine over. So I went looking for my jumper cables, and I don't know what happened to them. I might have left them at home. I might have left them with my wife and thought, oh, I'll get another set, you know, while I'm on the road, and I forgot about it. But in any event, I didn't have any jumper cables. So I'm like, all right, I know that pretty much the next exit after that rest area is Klein's Corners. And this is on 40 in New Mexico if you're keeping score at home. So I go to Klein's Corners, right? I pull in. There's actually a set of pumps that are closed off. They got the yellow bags on the handles. So I pull right in there. I go inside, and they got all sorts of trucker stuff. Everything you could possibly want except for jumper cables. And I even asked one of the workers, I'm like, you guys got any jumper cables? She's like, no, we don't have any over. She was all cheerful about it too. It was kind of funny. She was like, no, we don't have any over here. And they don't even have any on the other side, which is like a different gas station. There's like a Chevron and some other brand. There's like car pumps on both sides. So I'm like, ah, crap. Because the RA guy because I said, oh, I'm going east, I could go to Santa Rosa, and he's like, well, if you can't get this, if you don't have jumper cables and they don't have any, you're gonna have to go back to Moriarty to the TA because it's only 30 miles away. I'm like, all right. So I go out, and I don't know why, but I had this epiphany. So this dude had pulled in next to me in a motorhome, and he had a vehicle on the back, that he was towing. It wasn't a huge. It was kind of a smaller motorhome, but he was out there pumping fuel, and I was just like, you got to ask this guy. So I said to him, I said, excuse me, sir, would you happen to have some jumper cables I could borrow? I said, I'll pay you, but my reefer, I need to jump my reefer. And he's like, yeah, let me see. And so he looks around, he goes around in the back, and he's like, nope, they're actually right where I was. He goes up, gives me this container that, you know, the little plastic bag that has his jumper cables in it. And so I jumped it off the knobs on the back of my truck. I put it on charge. Well, then, you know, RA's like, yeah, let it go like 15 minutes. And I was like, I'm not sure this guy wants to be here 15 minutes. So I as soon as I hook it up, the truck's running, I go around the truck, I go over to him, I'm like, hey, I said, just, you know, you let me know as soon as you need to leave. And he's like, well, I kind of want to leave now. I'm like, okay, let me go over and try to start this thing. And I was like, hey, if it doesn't start, then I'll just have to go back to Moriarty, you know. But it started up. I mean, and it couldn't have been on charge more than 3 minutes. So, I mean, after it ran, you know, he came over and I said, yeah, it's just got to run through this cycle. It started up. I put it on continuous run and fuel hog, and, you know, so then he was worried about the trucker that was behind him. And I was like, you know, so he's like, I'm going to pull up. And I said, okay, I'll bring these back in a second. So I rolled them up, put them away. I went back to him and I said, hey, I said, I really appreciate this. And I said, you're not a lifesaver, but you are a load saver. And he just kind of chuckled. And so he went on his way, and I went on my way headed east. So right now, I'm stopped in Tucumcari at the Loves, waiting to get them to change the battery. My reefer's running. Unfortunately, this particular Loves does not have showers, and they're not going to have them until Wednesday. I was like, dang. There's going to be a lot of stinky truck driving. Because I was like, oh, we got some time to kill. Let's go get showers. We'll get in line for showers and get something to eat. We got something to eat, but no showers. So, gonna get the battery changed and just keep moving. Hopefully I can find, there's a few Loves between, you know, that because I'll have about 5.5 hours left. So yeah, we're gonna do that. But that's my story about how the dog needing to use the bathroom alerted me, because like I said, I got no messages, I got no yellow light on the trailer. The only reason I knew is because I went and checked the reefer itself and saw that it was alarmed, and realized what was going on. So, and by the way, I was having this conversation on my previous video about being in Coachella, but I really feel like trucking companies need, a lot of times with batteries, it's, the conventional wisdom is, oh, just wait till they crap the bed, essentially. And then, you get them replaced. But that's always, fraught with peril, because, I had batteries that I probably should have gotten changed, and I was like, oh, well, let me finish delivering this load, and then I ended up having to get them changed at a rest area. Fortunately, I don't think it was too much more than just the cost of the batteries, because the guy from Lowe's came out. But I really think that maintenance intervals are, like, maintenance departments at trucking companies are going to have to start looking at maintenance intervals. I saw a lot of trucks broken down when I was going, because I left, the other night I left Coachella and headed towards Phoenix, and there were a lot of trucks broken down, like going up the mountain. And I don't know, it could be any number of things, but I think these extremes of heat, and even extremes of cold, but definitely extremes of heat, they're the enemy of tires, they're the enemy of batteries, they're the enemy of, rubber lines that, we use for airlines, etc. And, I know we spend a lot of time thinking about winter, anti-gel, and, what do you do, and draining your air tanks and all these winter things. But I really feel like these summers, for people that are running in extraordinarily high temperatures, like above 105, you got to look at how many days you're running in those kind of temperatures, and maybe cut back on the interval. Maybe, and with the reefer trailers, I mean, those batteries get dogged. They get dogged. But I don't get the feeling that they spend a lot of time thinking about that. They're just like, just jump it, do this or do that. And that's cool, but, I've had batteries that couldn't be jumped before. So I think there's got to be, they might want to look at that. Because I often feel like there's a lot of trailers that haven't seen a terminal in like forever. And they're just getting them maintained down the road. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. Stay safe. I think it's about 95 here, so it's not as brutal as it was over in Arizona and California, Southern Cal, but still a pretty warm day. So be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.